one of the greatest epics ever put to film. A film with the most amount of money put into it for its time, with the largest sets and one of the most epic chariot scenes you're ever going to see in cinema history. If not the most epic chariot scene you'll ever see. It's the chariot scene. Whenever people think of Ben-Hur, the chariot scene is the first thing that pops into people's minds. It is a spectacle. This whole movie is an absolute spectacle. And no, we're not talking about the modern version, we're talking about the 1959 version. Ben-Hur, based on the book Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ by Lew Wallace, is one of the most epic movies you're ever going to see. Something about the 1950s and 60s were a very special time for Hollywood to make these absolute epics that really pushed the boundaries of filmmaking and could showcase vast landscapes, vast stories, characters going through vast character arcs. Everything about them was just epic in scope and in size, and just everything about them just done to the absolute best that filmmaking could do at the time. So what is it about this particular movie that stands out even after all these years? First, the plot summary. The story is about a Jewish prince by the name of Judah Ben-Hur and him trying to look after his family, which consists of his mother, his younger sister, and his love interest. They're trying to get by, and Judah Ben-Hur is also beginning to have conflict with his adopted brother Messala, who has become more involved with the regime of the Roman Empire. Judah wants to protect the Jewish people, whereas Messala wants to increase the Roman Empire. Obviously, Judah doesn't like that idea, and definitely the political tension at the time was that the Jews were wanting to overthrow the Romans after all the cruelty they had been through at that time. In this story, as a Roman centurion is being paraded through the town, Ben-Hur's younger sister accidentally lets a roof tile loose, scaring the centurion's horse and putting the family into trouble. The punishment is lesser, seeing it was accidental, but it's seen as an offense nonetheless. So Messala places Ben-Hur's mother and sister into prison and enslaves Judah Ben-Hur for many, many years. During his enslavement, Judah Ben-Hur comes across a peculiar carpenter who kindly gives him water when he needed it. Years later, Ben-Hur is working as a slave, working in the oars of a ship, when suddenly Macedonian pirates attack. Ben-Hur manages to save an important figure's life and is rewarded in a high position. And as he rises to power, he befriends a sheikh and is given the chance to compete in a chariot race against Messala to get revenge for what Messala did to him and his family. And then cued the absolutely epic chariot chase scene, which is absolutely spectacular. But unfortunately, as Ben-Hur does get his revenge and Messala dies, Messala tells Ben-Hur the tragic truth that as he was away, Ben-Hur's mother and sister became lepers as they were in prison. And so they had to be put out and cast with the other lepers. Ben-Hur gets his revenge, but he's vastly empty inside. Ben-Hur doesn't really quite know what to do with his life. But around this time, Jesus Christ is spreading his ministry. And so, by the time there's an opportunity to heal his mother and his sister of leprosy through Jesus Christ is already going through the trials. As he takes a closer look at him, Ben-Hur recognizes that was the carpenter who gave him water earlier. And Ben-Hur finds himself deeply moved by Jesus' crucifixion, especially when Jesus calls out to forgive his enemies for they do not know what they are doing, which sharply contrasts Ben-Hur's bitterness for vengeance earlier. And through this realization, through witnessing this, a miracle happens. Ben-Hur's mother and sister are miraculously healed from leprosy. And then Ben-Hur says, I felt him disarm the sword from my hand. Feel free to correct me if I misquoted that, but you get the idea. And so Ben-Hur rejoices at this miracle with his family, notifying that Jesus Christ is the Lord and that there is room for forgiveness. That's the whole plot, essentially. So what is there to say about this movie that makes it so epic? What makes this story so epic is, well, everything that's implemented into it from a filmmaking standpoint. The length that this movie goes to develop the characters. The length that this movie goes to establish these vast sets with these vast amounts of people to indicate the vastness of this kind of story. The implication that this story goes on for quite a long time. And the fact that these character arcs are done particularly quite well, from a filmmaking standpoint, the sheer practicality of so much effort is what makes this movie stand out even to this day. That's what makes that chariot scene so brilliant, because it's so visceral, and when you watch it, you just think, holy moly, people actually did those stunts? People actually risked life and limb just to get that kind of visual on screen? Wow! That's almost unseen of these days. The closest thing you get to that would be with, like, George Miller's Mad Max Fury Road or something. But obviously, what makes an epic is the fact that it starts off simple and then grows as it goes along, as Doug Walker says. And also, the themes are epic. In this case, the main theme of Ben-Hur is the need for forgiveness, as opposed to the bitterness of vengeance. Ben-Hur is going about most of this movie in a vengeance quest. But by the time he gets his revenge, the death of Messala is just leaving him with more bitterness. Not just with the realization that his mum and sister are infected with leprosy, but also just the fact that he still feels bitter. He's still resentful. He still feels like he doesn't quite know where to go in life. And the thing about that enticement of revenge is that, yes, it does play into the need for justice, but revenge in itself just leaves us empty and hollow. And what Ben-Hur realizes as he sees Jesus Christ forgive his enemies is the fact that life is much more fulfilling when you forgive your enemies. Now, some may say that Ben-Hur learned this lesson a little bit too late, but at the same time, it's necessary for Ben-Hur to feel the emptiness of revenge. I think the film needed to be this long so that we can see Ben-Hur go through these efforts to get revenge on Messala, and then have the film go for another stretch of length more to see just how empty vengeance is, and then have that victorious ending where he realizes the power that forgiveness can have on somebody. And that's what makes this such a brilliant, timeless movie. And the source material was so beloved that even other religious figures were willing to highly endorse it. And I think that really says a lot about how spiritually resonating this kind of story is. So, obviously, I give Ben-Hur a 12 out of 12. I honestly can't find anything to complain about in regards to this movie. It's a well-told story. It went on for as long as it needed to. It didn't need to go on for any longer. There's a lot you could dissect about the movie in regards to the contrast between forgiveness and vengeance. It's an amazing epic that is going to stand the test of time and is certainly better than the more modern take of it. So what do you think of Ben-Hur? Let me know down in the comments below. We'll get a conversation started. And happy Easter, everybody. ScotsThinker signing out. Why do I always fart during these recordings? Why does this happen?